Most men go through life thinking the way to win a woman is by showing more effort, sending more messages, proving themselves at every turn. They believe that if they just say the right thing, if they just find the perfect timing, if they show enough attention, she'll finally see them as different from the rest. But what they don't realize is that this constant striving comes from a place of need. It's a subtle form of desperation, and women feel it instantly. Attraction doesn't grow in a space filled with anxious energy. It grows in calmness, in grounded presence, in that rare stillness of a man who doesn't need her validation to feel secure. That is the true power of calm. It's not something you fake. It's not pretending to be cold or detached. It's not acting like you don't care while secretly obsessing over her replies. Real calm is deeper. It's an internal state that says, I'm fine with or without you. My world doesn't collapse because of your attention or lack of it. That energy is magnetic because it's rare. Most men are the opposite. They get nervous when she takes too long to reply. They overthink their every word. They scramble to explain themselves at the first sign of tension. And in doing so, they show their cards. They reveal their insecurity, make her feel like she holds all the power. But the man who is calm operates differently. He doesn't flinch when she pulls back. He doesn't spiral when she gets quiet. He doesn't chase validation in the form of constant reassurance. Instead, he stays steady. He knows his value doesn't depend on anyone's approval. That steadiness is what stands out. In a world where most guys are emotionally predictable, a calm man is unreadable. That unreadability makes him unforgettable. She begins to wonder about him, think about him, replay moments with him. Not because he forced it, but because his calm presence lingered long after he left. This kind of calm isn't just about women either. It's about life. When you move with peace, when you carry yourself like nothing can shake you, everyone feels it. In conversations, in conflict, in business, people look to the calm man as the anchor. He doesn't rush to speak. He doesn't beg to be heard. He doesn't seek permission to exist. He simply is. And in that being, he communicates confidence without trying. That's the irony most men miss. Calm doesn't try. Calm doesn't push. Calm doesn't chase. Calm attracts by existing fully in its own strength. The more you root yourself in this stillness, the less you feel the need to perform. You stop playing games to prove your worth. You stop rushing to fill every silence. You stop fearing that her interest will vanish if you don't constantly maintain it. Instead, you let things unfold naturally, knowing that you bring value simply by being who you are. That's the shift. That's the essence of masculine calm. It's not about being louder or smoother. It's about becoming the man who carries quiet power, who moves through the world with ease, and who understands that the calmest presence in the room is always the strongest. ChatGPT said, "The biggest trap men fall into without even noticing is the urge to explain themselves." It seems harmless at first. You don't want her to think you're ignoring her, so you say, "Sorry, I was just busy." You don't want her to misread your tone, so you say, "I didn't mean it like that." You want to be clear about your intentions, so you clarify every little thing. But what you don't realize is that every time you explain, you chip away at your own presence. You reveal insecurity instead of strength. You broadcast that her interpretation of you matters more than your own grounded truth. A man who constantly explains himself is essentially saying, "Please don't misjudge me. Please see me the way I want you to." And that's not masculine commits, hidden neediness dressed up as politeness. A calm man operates differently. He doesn't rush to clarify, because he knows his actions speak louder than his explanations. If she's confused about something, she can ask. If she assumes something that isn't true, she can sit with that until she wants clarity. He's not there to manage her perception of him. He's not bending over backward to make sure she interprets him correctly. His time and energy aren't wasted trying to control someone else's narrative. Instead, he trusts that who he is will show over time, and he's comfortable with someone not fully getting him right away. That comfort in being misunderstood is one of the deepest forms of strength. Mystery is what draws people in. Think about it when someone reveals every thought they have, every reason behind their actions. There's nothing left to wonder about. It's predictable, it's flat, it's forgettable. But when someone holds back, when they move with quiet assurance and let others sit in their own curiosity, it stirs emotion. And attraction is built on emotion, not logic. Women don't become obsessed with men who are always clear, always explaining, always making sure no misunderstanding exists. They become hooked on the men who leave space for curiosity, for imagination, for tension. The less you explain, the more she feels. And the more she feels, the deeper the attraction grows. This doesn't mean being cold, dismissive, or intentionally confusing. It means not overcompensating. It means letting silence speak instead of filling it with excuses. It means letting your decisions stand without wrapping them in justifications. When you choose to stay home instead of going out, you don't need to say, "I was just tired. I wasn't ignoring you." You simply stay home. When you take time before replying, you don't need to explain why. You just reply when you're ready. That kind of calmness communicates that your world doesn't revolve around constant approval. You're not performing for anyone. You're living in your lane, at your pace, without apology. Over time, this lack of explanation creates a shift in dynamic. She starts leaning in. She begins to wonder more, think more, ask more, because she doesn't have every answer handed to her. You've taken yourself out of the position of being on trial. It's constantly defending your actions, and instead stepped into the role of the man who doesn't need to prove himself. That's the essence of attraction. It's not in chasing harder, it's in holding steady while she chases the feeling your calmness creates. Most men are conditioned to believe that the way to a woman's heart is through pursuit. They are taught that if they chase hard enough, if they keep showing up, if they keep reminding her of their interest, she will eventually see their value. But the reality is that chasing does the opposite. It kills attraction because it signals that your sense of worth depends on her attention. Chasing says, "I need you to validate me," and neediness is the one thing that immediately makes a man less attractive. Women don't consciously think, "Oh, he's chasing, so I'll lose interest." They simply feel it. It drains the mystery. It makes the dynamic predictable. It tells her she doesn't have to put in any effort because you're already doing all the work. Stillness is the antidote to this. Stillness is the quiet confidence of knowing that you don't need to move toward her for her to notice you. It's the calm understanding that attraction works like gravity. The more grounded you are, the more naturally she gets pulled in. When you stop trying to be seen and instead focus on being steady, being rooted, she feels it. You become the man who stands out, not because you're louder or more persistent, but because you're rare. Most men orbit around women, constantly seeking approval. The man who doesn't orbit, the man who stays in his lane and carries himself with presence, becomes magnetic. What makes stillness powerful is how it breaks her expectations. Women are used to a cycle. She pulls back, the man chases harder. She goes cold, the man overcompensates. She throws a test, and the man scrambles to prove himself. This dynamic is so common that it almost feels natural to her. But when you respond differently, when you don't play into that pattern, it disarms her. She gives you a short reply, and instead of doubling down, you simply give space. She makes a snarky comment, and instead of defending yourself, you just smile. She withholds attention, and instead of panicking, you stay calm. That shift is powerful because it shows her she's not in control of your emotions. You are. This kind of stillness doesn't mean you stop engaging altogether. It doesn't mean you turn into a blank wall. It means you stop overreaching. You stop letting her actions dictate your emotional state. You stop moving faster than you need to. The energy becomes balanced because you're no longer chasing. And in that balance, she starts to feel something she didn't expect: curiosity. Why didn't he chase? Why didn't he react? Why didn't he explain? Those questions create intrigue. That intrigue creates attraction. When you master stillness, you shift from being predictable to being unpredictable. And unpredictability is exciting. You're not boring her by doing less. You're making her lean in because she can't fully read you. She can't put you in the same category as the men who crumble at the first sign of resistance. Instead, you stand out as the one who doesn't flinch. The one who doesn't need to prove. The one who doesn't need to chase. And that flips the game. It changes the dynamic from her being the prize you're chasing to you being the man she wants to figure out. One of the most overlooked qualities of a truly grounded man is presence. Most guys think they have to keep talking, joking, or entertaining to hold a woman's attention. They mistake noise for value, thinking that if there's ever a silence, it's their job to fill it. But silence doesn't make you boring. Silence doesn't make you weak. Silence, when carried with confidence, makes you powerful. Presence is about being fully there without trying to prove anything. It's about carrying yourself in such a way that your energy alone is enough. When you walk into a room calm, steady, and self-assured, people notice without you even speaking. That is the kind of power most men never learn to cultivate because they're too busy trying to perform. A man with presence isn't afraid of pauses in conversation. He doesn't feel the need to soften every moment with humor or constant chatter. He's comfortable letting a little space exist because he knows his worth doesn't depend on keeping her entertained. When a woman feels this from you, she responds in surprising ways. She becomes more expressive. She leans in to fill the silence. She reveals more of herself. Why? Because your grounded presence creates a safe container for her to open up. You're not chasing her reactions. You're not nervously waiting for her validation. You're simply there, solid and unbothered. That stability is rare, and because it's rare, it's valuable. Presence also determines the emotional tone of every interaction. Whoever controls the emotional tone leads the dynamic. If she's anxious, and you get anxious too, she's leading. If she's frustrated, and you react defensively, she owns the frame. But when you stay calm, when you refuse to be pulled into her emotional storms, you automatically shift the energy. Your calmness softens her edges. Your steadiness grounds her restlessness. Your composure forces her to match your vibe instead of you matching hers. That is influence without words. That is leadership without control. It's the kind of subtle authority that doesn't need to announce itself because it's felt at a deeper level. The reason presence is so powerful is because it communicates security. A man who needs to fill silence. A man who needs to perform. A man who needs to manage every reaction is a man who is afraid of being overlooked. But a man who sits calmly, who speaks only when he chooses, lets silence exist without fear, shows that he's not desperate for attention. He's comfortable in his own skin. That comfort radiates and invites others to relax around him. Women feel this instantly. They sense that you don't need them to feel whole. You don't require constant reassurance. And that allows them to let their guard down. So presence isn't about saying more or doing more. It's about doing less with more certainty. It's about walking into any interaction knowing that your energy sets the tone. The man with presence doesn't chase approval, doesn't overtalk, doesn't overreact. He anchors the moment simply by being fully there. And once you realize the power of that, you'll stop trying to impress and start letting your presence do the work for you. Here's the part most men never figure out. Calm doesn't just attract it, makes her chase. Society teaches men to do more, try harder, send more texts, prove themselves again and again. But when you stop doing all that, when you settle into stillness, something shifts. The more you pull back from the need to impress, the more she leans forward to impress you. The less you ask for validation, the more she starts to seek yours. It almost feels counterintuitive at first because we're conditioned to believe effort equals results. But in the dynamics of attraction, too much effort kills the spark. It removes the polarity that makes her lean in. When you stop chasing, you create the space for her to wonder, to desire, to pursue. That is where the magic happens. Think about it. When you're constantly asking where things are going, she feels no need to think about it. You've already taken on the role of pushing the relationship forward. But when you don't ask, when you don't rush, suddenly she's the one questioning where she stands with you. She begins to replay your words, your silences, your actions. She starts to wonder what you think, how you feel, where she fits into your life. That wondering builds curiosity, and curiosity builds emotional investment. She's no longer passive, she's active. She's moving toward you because your calm created a gap she wants to close. This isn't manipulation. It's magnetism. The difference is that manipulation comes from trying to control her behavior, while magnetism comes from controlling yourself. You're not withholding out of strategy. You're simply not overextending. You're not giving her everything up front because you don't feel the need to. You're rooted in your own lane, and she feels that. The steadier you are, the more her feminine energy wants to be drawn in. Feminine energy is movement, curiosity, flow. Masculine energy is stillness, presence, direction. When you hold your ground, her natural instinct is to move toward it. That's polarity in its purest form. Tests will come, and this is where calm is truly revealed. She might try to poke at you, act cold, or throw subtle challenges to see if you'll break. Most men flinch. They defend, they overthink, they react. But the calm man doesn't. He knows her test isn't personal, it's her way of feeling out his strength. And because he doesn't take it personally, he doesn't give it power. He stays cool, maybe laughs it off, maybe lets the silence carry the moment. That unshakable response tells her everything. It tells her she can't control him with games. It tells her he's not emotionally fragile. It tells her she's dealing with a man who stands on his own foundation. And that's when attraction deepens. Because she knows she can lean on him without breaking him. When you stop trying harder and start being still, the dance flips. She invests more. She tries to impress. She begins to chase not because you tricked her, but because she feels something rare around you. She feels safe, intrigued, and challenged all at once. Your calm becomes the reason she can't stop thinking about you. In a world full of men who chase, the one who doesn't becomes unforgettable. That's the power of masculine stillness. It's not louder, it's not smoother, it's quieter, stronger. And it makes her move toward you without you having to lift a finger.